This is anyway. So as I was saying, what was I saying? Yes, the 1947 Tyrone Power version. It was not the vision that Power had about it. I mean, he lobbied for this, and it was disappointing at the box office. It was disappointing in so many ways. And, you know, it's the kind of story that... I'm trying to think of how to say this. Like, sleep deprivation. Nightmare Alley is the kind of story that is difficult to really convey visually instead of, through words. Just the overall atmosphere that this gives you, like the feelings that, this world that Stan and Molly and everyone else live in, like, it is not... It's a cold world, it's a world that you'd have to be cynical in order to survive, like, it is cruel, it is harsh, and even the con artists get conned, and, all of that stuff. It was hardest to do in the Code era, because the moral guardians wanted everything to be pure and squeaky clean, because American puritanical beliefs, which is another stream I could go on. I'm half English. I grew up in England, moved here when I was 10, so I lost the accent. But, yeah, that cultural values. Anyway, the Hays Code kind of put a dent in that, but also, like, the 2021 version, people are... I wouldn't say they're not used to having villain protagonists, but audiences are less inclined to stick with something that is relentlessly, like, dark, I guess, if they feel like there's not someone to root for. And in this film, the only person that I felt myself rooting for, well, I've rooted for Pete, and then R.I.P., and then I rooted for Molly. Like, even Madame Zena, like, she loved Pete very, very much, but the first opportunity she got, she fucked the shit out of Stan. Like, in both versions, like, you couldn't say it in 1947, but oh my god, they made sure that you knew that they were boning hardcore. And, it's, Toni Collette in, the 2021 version plays Madame Zena, and she's transcendent as always. Like, this woman deserves all the Oscars, said so at Hereditary, keep saying so until the day I die. But Toni Collette basically, like, jumps his bones 5 minutes after meeting him because he comes to take a bath because they have a tub and he pays like a nickel, and she's just like, oh, nice dick you have there, yoink. But yeah, she loves Pete, but she actively cheats on him all the time, even though he's drinking himself to death. And yeah, so it's hard for us to identify with any of these characters, even Molly, because she just kind of vanishes off the face of the earth toward the climax, and before that, she's not really involved much after she marries Stan. She becomes Stan's wife, but, he disregards her, and it's unfortunate, because he's so infatuated with Lilith, and even she's not really given too much of a spotlight. It's all about him, and he is a bad person. So, modern-day audiences, film noir, like I said, is not really a popular genre anymore, but there's a certain apathy that that comes with the norms in cinema having changed so much. Like, film noir was a huge genre in the 40s and 50s that was post-war. It was, the world was a darker place, and it was a way of coping. Here we have had a huge surge in zombie movies. Horror movies have become, like, more socially acceptable. And, so we have that kind of catharsis. We don't need to wallow in the cynicism. We can just, watch another Romero movie. But, yeah, it's, I have a point here, and I'm trying to explain it, and I'm getting really frustrated. I fucking hate sleep deprivation. My mind does not work. If you're not used to the genre, if it's not a popular genre, if it's not something that you are consistently exposed to as a general audience member, then it's going to be kind of hard for you to want to stick with it because it's just like, this is depressing and all these people are terrible. And not in a fun way either. Like, I don't want to see this guy, like, end up on top. So it's understandable. I am a classic movie nerd. And, oh, hi! We're talking about Nightmare Alley. We're comparing and contrasting the 1947 adaptation and the 2021 one. You missed my very long monologue kind of breaking down the story. But that's okay, that's okay. So, essentially, like, audiences did not want to see this. It didn't do well at the box office. Oh boy, I have spoiled this so much. So, you came just in the nick of time. Audiences did not want to see this. It was also really bad timing because COVID. And, I was very reluctant, at first to go to movie theaters around about the time that this came out, and I saw the trailer for it ahead of, God, I can't even remember. It was another movie I saw that was sort of forgettable. It was a horror movie, and I saw the ad for this, and I was like, oh shit, it's another GDT movie. Like, yes, finally. And the advertising, like, it doesn't do it justice, but it also doesn't really let you know that this is a film noir, that this is not, ow, my cat, that this is not going to be, like, you know, a pleasant movie to watch. So, yeah, there's misaimed marketing. Studios love to do that if they don't believe in a project. But anyway, so yeah, it was basically doomed to fail. It was released at a very awkward time, by the distribution company. I believe that was partially on purpose. They've done that before to movies that they don't believe in. And, yeah, in the 1947 version, it was because of Tyrone Power not being Tyrone Power to the general audience. He was a bad guy, and you can't be the bad guy. But here, it feels more like it was ahead of its time, behind the times, and also just not something that in this day and age would be a cash cow. So, yeah, I have very strong feelings about the way of the media conglomerates now. The fall of the studio system was supposed to have stopped all of this. They were trust busted. They had to shut down all of their practices, like basically having actors be indentured servants, contracts, loaning them out, killing careers of women who say no in a more direct way. And everything that has come out about Hollywood now, it's almost exactly the same in a different era, but people don't want to acknowledge that this is worse than the studio system. Pharaoh, why? It's actually worse because there are more monopolies. Can you not? Hey, rude. I'm sorry. He loves it when I'm doing something and it's not paying attention to him. He ignores me constantly, and then he figures out that I'm focused on something, and he's got to get in the way and mess it all up. Stop it! Hold on 1 second, I'm gonna kick him out. Come here. You're a bad boy. Sorry. Again, sleep deprived, having trouble with keeping train of thought. Yes, the monopolies of the media companies are becoming a super, super big problem. Capitalism has really fucked over the film industry. Disney now owns most of the box office. So it's easier now for specific studios and production companies to tank movies that they don't believe in, like Nightmare Alley. We're lucky enough that there are independent studios like A24 who are putting out the more subversive movies. But the whole distribution schedule, release dumps, January's dump month, And this came out in, was it November or December of 2021? Time has no meaning and hasn't since 2020. But it came out at a time when, it's sort of the whatever movies that you're going to put out before the end of the year. January is where you throw all of the stuff isn't going to make money because, it's pre-Oscar season, no one's paying attention. And they didn't dump it directly to streaming. So, yeah. I'm sure that there was a contract somewhere about that, because that has been a big problem too. I'm sure you've heard about Scarlett Johansson suing Disney because of breach of contract. Like, that sort of thing has happened a lot with COVID sort of messing up the old standard, release everything into cinema and then it comes to streaming, months later. So there must have been something in the contract that Del Toro signed with this production that, it was going to be a cinematic release. Anyway, Nightmare Alley cannot recommend enough. Watch it. Watch it again. So, this is weird for me. I never get to go on, 45-minute rants about specific properties. So I'm enjoying this. This is nice. I'm gonna go back to my Letterboxd. Dude, you know what? I'm gonna talk about The Brave Little Toaster. I have been dying to talk about The Brave Little Toaster for a month now. And it is just a trip of a movie. I don't really remember what it was that made me, want to watch this fever dream of a childhood nightmare again, but I did. And as an adult, oh boy, there's a lot to unpack with The Brave Little Toaster. So, I'm not sure if you, my dear one viewer, have ever seen it or heard of it. Can you let me know in the chat if you're paying attention, if you've seen it before? If not, I'm going to explain it anyway for the benefit of anyone who might be watching this after I've finished broadcasting. The Brave Little Toaster was a movie that came out in 1988. It's an animated movie for kids. It's, the title is pretty much, there's a toaster, there's a bunch of inanimate, well, not inanimate, they all are alive, household appliances. There's a toaster, there's a lamp, his name is Lampy. There is a blanket named Blanky, it's an electric blanket. There is a vacuum cleaner called Kirby, who is also Tony the Tiger's voice, and the guy who sings the just utterly roasting song about the Grinch and how the Grinch stole Christmas. Damn, that song is savage. But, there's the radio. Oh, God, I love the radio. Played by John Lovitz, and he talks a lot those 1930s and 40s newsreel announcers meanwhile on the Eastern Front we're really giving it to them Nazis. Western Front. I can history. So anyway, they are in the summer home of this family from the city, and they're waiting for the master to come home, and the master is the son of the couple who own this place. They know him as a little kid. I'm guessing that he had somewhat of a sad childhood because he made friends with these appliances and gave them nicknames. So, they've spent God knows how long in this cabin just waiting for him to come home. And especially the electric blanket. There's this really, oh my god, I don't know what people who make children's media were doing in the 80s and 90s. Honestly, around about the turn of the century, because Pink Elephant's on Parade from Dumbo, it's the same sort of thing, it is just trippy as hell, it comes out of nowhere. But there's this, imagination sequence that the blanket has where he, the master, bounces on in. He's this, kid with a bowl cut, and he's got bright red hair and buck teeth and glasses. And he's like, Blanky! And the blanket's floating down. So... like Scarlett O'Hara down the staircase. Master! And it is just, this is in the first 10 minutes. It is like nightmare fuel. There's, anyway, the appliances decide that they have had enough of waiting for the master, and they're going to take a journey to the city, and somehow they know where it is, I guess, but they're going to go and find him in the city, and they're not going to, just wait to have the house sold because someone hammers a for sale sign into it, because I guess the parents, can't afford it anymore, the economy, whatever. And, the air conditioner haunted my nightmares. I don't remember if I really liked this movie. I wore out a lot of tapes as a kid, but I remember distinctly The Brave Little Toaster. And let me just look up real quick, because I always confuse the guy, Phil from SNL, with Phil Hartman. And just give me one listen. Or 1 second. Oh shit, Mindy Serling's into this. Phil Hartman. It is Phil Hartman. God damn. Anyway. Whoa. There we go. Anyway. So this air conditioner, he's built into the window, right? And Phil Hartman's doing this amazing Jack Nicholson impersonation. And the air conditioner is just such a deadpan bitch. He's just like, oh, you're gonna go find the master? Well, you're a fucking toaster, and Kirby has to be plugged in to move, so you're not gonna get very far, are you? You damn idiots. And the toaster's like, you're just jealous because he couldn't play with you, because you're built into the wall. And this air conditioner just flies into this huge rage. It is terrifying. And he literally rages himself to death. He breaks himself. It's like suicide. And it's like, Jesus Christ. This is, again, in the first 15 minutes of this movie. But it's for kids. So they jury-rig a car battery or something like that so Kirby can carry them all to the city. And I guess his bag was infinite because he just vacuums his way across fields and shit. And so they're making their way cross country. They stop at this pond area, little glade thing, and there's a long, song and dance sequence that has nothing to do with anything. There's an opera singing fish. There's a little arc there for the fish. He's trying to get this worm that is, fleeing for its life. I don't understand. So, they spend some time there. There's a flower that the toaster finds, and the flower falls in love with its own reflection, and it thinks Toaster is another flower. And Toaster's like, nah, you need to get off of me, son. I have to go. And the flower, literally dies of loneliness 2 seconds after the toaster runs away from it. And it is fucking heartbreaking. I'm sorry. Just, the more I talk about this movie and, actually, voice it, the more, insane it sounds. I thought this movie was honestly, I thought I had a fever dream or something about it until I was, in my mid-20s, and I was like, wait, no, The Brave Little Toaster is a thing. And every other millennial I've talked to who saw this as a kid, they were like, wait, that was a real movie? So it's not just me. Let me turn on the light real quick. Anyway, so, they do make it to the city, eventually, but, spoiler, I guess. But, before that, they come across, this, there's, a mud pit, there was also, a waterfall and just, standard children's journey, hero's journey stuff in cartoon media, oh no, the party is in trouble, oh no, the party's splitting up. But anyway, they fall into, this mud pit, and this guy who's, a repairman / he just is a hobbyist with, tech stuff and fixes stuff. appliances. He finds them and he's like, oh boy, cool. This is like a sturdy toaster. This is a pretty cool vacuum cleaner. I will take these back to my workshop. And so he just kind of takes them back. I'm sorry. And they are in the back of this workshop, right? And it is like a horror movie on steroids back there, because it's all of these appliances that have actually gone absolutely mad because he takes them apart. Like, he scraps them for parts, like, that's his job. And there's this sequence where a guy brings in his old blender, it needs a new belt, and you just see this in silhouette, and it is absolutely just, like, fucking horrifying. He's, like, unscrewing it, he's taking out the old belt, and it's just like, you see the appliances reacting like, Jesus fucking Christ, and the other appliances who have been there for a while, they're just like, yes. Living here is a never-ending nightmare, and we long for death. He puts us to be together wrong. They sing, like, this whole, like, song about how wrong it is for them to, like, be living the way that they do, and how much of a monster he is. He's treated like goddamn Mangala. And there's a hanging lamp, and for some reason he's Peter Lorre. So the appliances manage to escape in one piece. And they do make it to the city, but we're not done yet. We have to they somehow track down the apartment of the master. I don't know how, they don't even know his name, but they find him somehow, and they just, like, show up. And the appliances in their apartment are, like, the new and improved ones. There's actually, the song that they sing is called New and Improved. And it's, like, the most 80s, like, yuppie bullshit. And all of these, like, new appliances are just, like, like, what the fuck, is that a 1960s model vacuum cleaner? Like, what does this do? How dare you, trash? And they basically sing this whole song where they are passive-aggressive, then not so passive-aggressive, telling the old appliances basically, like, we are far superior to you because we have new technology. You are obsolete. Blah, blah, blah. And there's actually, like, a very deep sort of interpretation that I can go into about that song at a later date. But anyway, the TV in the apartment is an older model. It's a dial TV. I had one when I was a kid, but it's obviously, like, an older set. It's black and white. And he's the only part of the apartment that actually, like, sympathizes with these poor fucking appliances. And so Toaster and crew somehow get knocked into a dumpster outside by accident by these new appliances, and the TV's just like, Jesus Christ, you just sent them to their deaths. And the master, who is now in his 20s and has a foxy-ass girlfriend, he's heading out, I think, on his own for the first time to live with her. And the TV is, like, trying desperately to get his attention to tell him that he needs to go to the junkyard to rescue these intrepid, pieces of childhood appliances. Like, I can't even refer to them as anything but appliances. And eventually, like, the girlfriend is kind of like, wow, there's a lot of ads for this very specific junkyard. I guess we should probably go, since they're having, like, the greatest sale on things of all time. So, at the junkyard, Toaster and crew are, they are in, those, like, stacks of cars where it's, like, they get crushed and, like, compacted and stuff. Yeah, these cars, actually, like, this whole sequence literally made me cry as an adult, because it is raw. These cars sing about how once they were useful, and the things that they did and the adventures that they have, they belong to somebody, and now their time has gone. They are now useless. There's nothing more to them, and time is fleeting. Everything that they experienced in life is ultimately pointless, and then they just kind of get picked up by this magnet, which is sinister as fuck, and it never speaks, unlike the other things, but it gets picked up by the magnet, dropped on the conveyor belt, and they just go to their deaths. Like, these are suicidal goddamn automobiles. And this is a very long song. I think it's the longest song in the actual movie. And this is the last sequence, by the way. Like, after this one, the master takes them to his new place and wherever the fuck, and the movie just abruptly ends. But in this junkyard, we are treated to this just super, like, raw, it's emotional, like, song from these cars, and the magnet is basically, like, it has eyes and stuff, but it's a lot less sentient than any of the other, like, tools and appliances that we have met so far. And it literally is just single-minded. It goes after Toaster and crew because, you know, its job is to make sure that these things are crushed. And he is very infuriated, or they, might be a non-binary magnet, I don't know. This magnet is very, like, frustrated, upset, and offended that they keep, like, eluding it. So he just goes after it, and it's kind of, like, there's a very scary moment where, the magnet is moving. It's hard for me to, like, explain why this kind of gets to you, but the magnet is moving towards them, and its eyes just kind of slowly, like, close until it looks like a normal magnet. Whew. But anyway, it picks up the Toaster and crew. Somehow the master and the missus get to this junkyard, and he's like, oh my god, it must be my appliances from the summer cabin that I had when I was a kid. Yeah! That makes sense, and it's a reasonable conclusion to jump to. So he goes onto the conveyor belt after Toaster and crew have been caught by said magnet. He's on the conveyor belt, he is heading towards the crusher, like, Master is about to get, like, completely pulverized. Toaster sacrifices his or her, the gender of the Toaster is very ambiguous, but, the Toaster sacrifices itself by, like, physically, like, shoving its body into the cogs. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ! So the Master lives. And, like, at the end, you see him fixing the Toaster. Like, Toaster somehow is completely, like, dent-free and works perfectly. And the Master makes toast. And Toaster is happy. Everyone gets packed into the car, and movie's over. It's like, this was intended for children. Like, this movie is just such a trip. I actually bought the DVD after because it's hard to find it online. I had to watch it. I found like a sketchy upload on YouTube, and it was like one of two that I could find on the internet in its entirety. So I bought the DVD from Amazon after I finished watching it, and I'm probably going to revisit it because I kind of want to do like a paper or like, you know, an op-ed or something like that about this film and the existential horrors of this film. But yeah, it's obscure, but for some reason, like, a lot of 90s kids and probably like kids who were around in the late 80s, like, and saw this in theaters, like, it seems to be something that we have commonly seen together, like, but no one really remembers, or they don't, like, consider, like, that it actually was a real movie. They thought they made it up or something, because you just heard me tell you about it. But yeah, like, I find very little discourse about it. So, by the way, the Master goes back to the cabin and fixes the air conditioner, too. He's like Jesus bringing Lazarus back to life with these damn things. And the air conditioner, like, hums back to life, and he looks at the Master after the Master's turned his back, and he's like, I'm like, my god, this movie goes hard. Jack Nicholson, she'll keep your house clean. Or cool. And, I looked more into, this movie after seeing it again. And it is based on a book, a children's book, by this author. Let me just find his name for you real quick. Thomas M. Dish. And the thing about Thomas M. Dish that is very interesting to me, he is best known for his novels that are basically just nihilistic as fuck. he was a sci-fi author. He wrote a bunch of pretty like well received but also like considered to be very dark and, you know, depressing as shit, like speculative sci-fi stuff. But he, for some ungodly reason, because he didn't have children of his own, he decided he was going to write two children's books. And the first was The Brave Little Toaster, and the second one was The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars, which they also adapted. I've never seen it. I'm good with the first one. But the thing is, the book was actually way less intense than the movie. So somebody saw this already, like, pretty existential, like, it's a sad book. I told you about the flower that dies of loneliness after the toaster, like, pulls away. The flower and the toaster in the book actually talk about, like, the flower, and it laments against fate because it when it was being pollinated, like, this seed kind of fell to an area where the other flowers weren't growing. So it's the only flower, and it knows that it's destined to be alone forever, and it just wants to die. And you kind of get that in the movie, and it's just completely silent, so... But yeah, they somehow made it even darker than the book. And, yeah, shortly after this guy wrote these books, he offed himself. So, it explains a lot. Oh, God. But yeah, I honestly, like, even after all of this, I would check it out if you're interested in the kind of, like, messed up children's media, but also, like, if you're interested in, sort of deeper meanings behind things and kind of ponderous existentialism. It's also fun to laugh at because it's just bonkers, but, yeah, it's a surprisingly complex movie. There's a lot of themes like coming to terms with your ultimately your pointless life, ultimately accepting that you are not always going to be useful. There's going to come a time when you are going to have to be taken care of instead of, you know, contributing to society. Which again is mostly from these cars. The song that they sing is actually very beautiful. I can put a link in the chat to that, and it's also about the hero's journey. It's a very classical like example of the hero's journey, and if you're familiar with that sort of, it's not a formula. It's like a literary. Oh God, I can't think of the word, but it's like in mythology, there's the hero's journey, and they have like various stages. It's pretty much like close to that. It's a very good example. That's another thing I can link upon a request. It's the pacing is weird as shit, but more or less it's a fairly complete narrative. It tackles things like anxiety and like imposter syndrome, fear of fear that you will not be accepted anymore, fear that you don't belong anywhere anymore. And yeah, it's a trip, but if you look at it through the lens of, you know, ignoring the surrealistic parts of it, then it's a very thought-provoking movie. And yeah, I'm actually going to leave it there. This has been kind of cool for me. I might come back and do it again later. Maybe put on some of that new makeup if I can figure out how to not do it through my cell phone, because that was a disaster earlier, but see if I can film it. But yeah, to whoever's watching this and my one viewer right now, Remat, thank you for listening to me. I was very reluctant to do this in the beginning. I never talk for this long, honestly. So this was kind of cathartic for me, and I want to thank you for your time and listening to me, and yeah, you have a great night if I don't see ya. Bye!